Correctional Service to conduct its own investigation into Friday breakout. Australia-PNG business ties remain solid. And Agriculture Minister says industry underfunded.
This is National EMTV News with Meriba Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us for Monday's news. Manam Islanders living in care centres on the mainland of Bogia in Madang say the children have not been able to go to school since the start of the 2017 school year. Potsdam Care Centre Manager Paul Mabaro says 3 teachers who have been appointed to the postings have not been at work.
Islanders living in Potsdam Care Centre told EMTV News they were worried their children may not be able to get the kind of education they deserve. Apart from the daily struggle of limited food and water, education and health are their other concerns.
Loside long education now yeah some old mangi blooming no best stop nothing while some slight raps and clock come up. Healthcare me blind no looking one black healthcare lo here but Kanili old heavy long old body outside blow sick and me play go long one blood little sick long old tabele primary school and stop long get one blood healthcare so little sick and walk come up me plan move through this lot of healthcare.
Education Director Moses Sariki says there are 198 school-aged children who are not attending class.
After the Provincial Education Board said yes to open up Bokawa Primary School on the island to cater for the needs of the education needs for the children who are with the parents.
However, the 3 teachers who were appointed by the Education Board have not been to work since the beginning of the school year. This is the 2nd term, and the Education Director is not sure what will happen to the students.
It's term 2, and I really do not know what's going to happen to the children. There's 198 students. I'm going to go back to the office, call the 3 teachers up, and we'll sort out the student population by grades, and then we will try to enroll them with the other students who are currently attending Tabele Primary School on the mainland.
Mata Luis, National EMTV News, Madang.
Agriculture Minister Tommy Tomskol says Papua New Guinea's agriculture sector has not been funded adequately. He says the national government's focus has been diverted to the non-renewable sector, including the LNG gas and other mining projects. Tomskol says the agriculture sector contributes more than 25% of the GDP that makes the sector just as important as any other. Edwin Fidelis reports from Kokopo.
Papua New Guineans are natural subsistence farmers and fishermen who make up the country's agriculture sector. But in recent years, the agriculture sector, which contributes about 25% to the PNG's GDP, is faced with new challenges, such as the cocoa and coffee pests, drought, unstable commodity prices, and new scientific knowledge unlocked by agriculture institutions were never utilized. The Agriculture and Livestock Minister Tommy Tomskol was in Kokopo last week when he reiterated about the importance of agriculture and the support it needed but don't usually get it.
Up to this point in time, we have seen very little funding and investment.
But what's more worrying is the level of work that agriculture-oriented institutions are having difficulties translating scientific researches to the ordinary people who needed it. And for that to happen, the sector needs more money.
We have failed to support our scientists. We have failed to support our institutions. And we have done so by failing to provide adequate level of funding and funding consistently annually.
80% of Papua New Guineans live in rural areas who depend largely on agriculture to sustain their livelihoods. But until recently, more and more resource development projects are becoming available on a larger scale, and in most cases dominated by foreign investors. And there are concerns that the large untapped potentials of the agriculture sector will be largely ignored.
We have to come back, we have to mobilize and we have to grow this sector.
The Agriculture and Livestock Minister says PNG government must look into the future of its people, and that is to create an economy built on agriculture and not oil, gas and gold. Edwin Fidelis, National EMTV News, Kokopo.
The 33rd Australia Papua New Guinea Business Forum and Expo once again saw the gathering of business and industry leaders from both countries. Discussions reflected the theme, navigating the cycle, creating opportunities in challenging times. Lian Johari with more.
Despite Australia and Papua New Guinea experiencing economic downturns, PACER Plus discussions coming to an end without Papua New Guinea and ongoing tensions at the Manus Detention Centre, the private sectors of both countries continue to maintain a firm relationship. Now, this was obvious today at the APNG Business Forum. Giving his keynote speech, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill thanked Australia for their continuous support and strong partnership.
Let me take note that it is an important year for both countries. It marks an important milestone between our two countries, especially around the 75th year since the Battle of Kokoda. We've had the opportunity of the visit by the Australian Governor-General, the Prime Minister of Australia, and the opposition leader who have visited us recently. And today we welcome our good Senator, the Minister responsible for Pacific Affairs, here with us. This continues to demonstrate a strong bilateral relationship between our two countries, forged not only by that battle, but now interlinked by the economies and, of course, people-to-people relationship between our two countries.
On her part, Australia's Minister for International Development and the Pacific boasted about Australia's development works in the country.
Clearly we are facing challenging times, there's no doubt about that, and what I tried to do this morning was look at the challenging times that both Australia and Papua New Guinea are facing, but also look to the future, the necessary work that needs to be done, even when in difficult times, to ensure that economies progress and progress into the future.
Lian Johari, National EMTV News.
Over the past 48 hours, Papua New Guineans on social media have been asking questions regarding the presence of foreign private military contractors engaged with NCD police. EMTV today requested for an explanation from the police commissioner. In a statement released just before news time, Mr. Baki said the Royal Papua New Guinea Constabulary is currently engaged in discussions with an American-based security company, Lawrence Aviation and Security Group, to train an elite rapid response team for APEC 2018 and for ongoing policing into the future. Lawrence Aviation and Security Group is an American-based company that offers high-end security solutions to its customers globally, including the United States government. It is staffed by former American military and police personnel. The president of the company, Peter Halliman, the son of a missionary, was born in Papua New Guinea. The presence of the group and their display of weapons in public has prompted calls by prominent citizens, including former Prime Minister Sir Mekere Morata and former PNGDF Commander Major General Jerry Singarok, for an investigation. We will keep you updated on any new developments. You're watching National EMTV News, and the news ahead. Popondetta Hospital staff say they were embarrassed following the events surrounding the disruption to the opening of the hospital. That story and more when we come back. Welcome back to National EMTV News. It's his first time to run for office. However, Mosby Northwest candidate Joe Tonde is confident he will oust sitting MP Michael Malabag. Yesterday in the nation's capital, hundreds turned out at Morata to welcome Tonde in what was described as the biggest rally of supporters for any candidate contesting the Mosby Northwest seat.
Yesterday in Port Moresby's Morata suburb, hundreds gathered to show their support for Mosby Northwest candidate Joe Tonde. He was given a traditional Highlands welcome. Mr. Tonde, a Western Highlander and a long-serving 7-day Adventist missionary, will run under the PNG One Nation Party, of which he is the leader.
Me prepare finish. So you know what one man by come close to me.
While it is his first time to contest, Tonde believes he has the qualities to lead the people of Mosby Northwest. He mentioned at his rally that if he is voted into parliament, he will address prolonged issues faced by residents of Mosby Northwest. One major issue being land evictions and unlawful land grabbing.
Time me go inside the floor of parliament. One big blood talk by me talk. Ogra this la grand way stop must stop. Me but talk him all this la grand way money stop here. All must kiss him back. You must kiss him this la one him where you stop long end.
The community of Morata then put on colorful dances, and later that night, Tonde hosted a Mother's Day dinner for the Rainbow Missionary House Women's Group. Stanley Ove Jr., National EMTV News.
More jobs are expected to be created in Papua New Guinea's tuna industry. This follows an instruction by Prime Minister Peter O'Neill to review and ensure compliance with state agreements for processors and fishing vessels in PNG waters. Under the plan he approved today, the National Fisheries Authority will immediately cease the current practice of discounting the sale price of the vessel days. The new system will see rebates only given to companies for fish that is processed in PNG. Mr. O'Neill said Papua New Guinea's tuna industry processing capacity is increasing, and PNG is now in a stronger position to ensure more tuna is landed on our shores to be processed for sale to overseas markets. He said state agreements, when fully implemented, can generate an additional 16,000 jobs in the regional centres of Lae, Wewak and Madang. Medical doctor by day and designer by night, Dr. Jim Curry is in his second year as a residential doctor at the Port Moresby General Hospital. He was the designer behind the casual wear dresses worn by the crowned world supermodel PNG and the teen category. His designs will be featured in Macau on the global stage, and he hopes to attend a fashion school in Paris.
Known as Dr. Jim Curry, and no, we are not related, the aspiring designer who debuted his work of art at the World Supermodel PNG pageant says while he loves his day job as a medical doctor, he had always had the passion for fashion.
Working in the hospital is actually challenging. There's so many things to worry about, you know. So this has been my life. So ever since I started working, I've been stuck up in the hospital, and but there's something that I always love doing, and which is fashion, designing. So like in mostly it's to do with like sewing. So I love sewing.
When he came in for the interview, he told us that the shirt he was wearing was actually his take of an operating theatre scrub. And what's even more surprising is that he is self-taught, and most of his clothes he wears is sewn by himself.
I make my own clothes, like shirts for that matter. I make them. I'm not ashamed of what I'm doing, and I feel that in a way it saves money, and also it increases my skill as well, you know.
Now to the stunning dresses that were worn by Miss Teen World Supermodel PNG. Dr. Curry explains the green and gold came from the vanilla green gold term used during the vanilla boom. Also, the Alexander butterfly was a part of the design, and the Motu Koitaban tattoo.
And because I purposely chose those particular tattoos which tell of that women's story. So the fact that I am in Moresby, in Port Moresby, and this design is actually is like my appreciation to the central people.
Now the young doctor wants to continue his fashion journey, and will after he gives 2 years back to the state working as a medical doctor. After that, he plans to attend a fashion school.
2 years, because that's part of the requirement. As soon as we finish our residency, we have to give 2 years back to the country as a service. So I have to honor that and I have to work. And after that, I'm planning to go back to school and I'm planning to go to a fashion school, probably overseas.
Dr. Jim Curry says he hopes to one day actually design doctors' and nurses' scrubs to wear in the hospital, but with a cultural twist to it in all the state hospitals. But one thing is for sure, that if he is at a fashion runway and someone gets hurt, there is a doctor already on standby. Adelaide Sirks, Curry National, EMTV News.
The management and staff of the Popondetta General Hospital say they were embarrassed by the turn of events that unfolded at the official opening of their operating theatre. On the 2nd of May, several minutes before guest of honour, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill was scheduled to arrive, Northern Governor Gary Juffa took the stage and addressed the crowd. Minutes later, the Prime Minister cancelled his visit. The hospital management and staff now say they were left speechless and not knowing what to do.
The office of the hospital board chairman had a media release published in the newspapers today. Its purpose, to clarify the hospital's position regarding the turn of events of May 2nd in Popondetta town. The hospital felt that their tireless effort in preparing for and organizing the day was not considered. Sing Sing groups had travelled for days by sea from as far as Milne Bay and Morobe provinces. The hospital said they had waited for such a service for 26 years, having previously worked under harsh conditions and condemned buildings to serve the people. As public servants, they were only doing their job. The hospital's acting chief executive officer, Dr. Petrus Opum, was placed in an awkward situation on the day.
Me like tokosem, all program me plan make him. Me sorry lo tokosem, you me come lo this plus stage na. Now, at grass now something stop, kundu em ready lo pirap na. Em pondo stop na. Em osem so. Bell blow ipla, please me ask him. Patience blow ipla. Ipla can stop easy. Me stop na melo one plus situation, me no have lo control him. Nah, me no like making this plus situation come up osem one bla time long. Election now osem. Me like talk clear lo ipla all keta. I'll see him long helping people.
Dr. Petrus stressed that their intentions were pure.
Lo politics side, me no got one blood talk lo display. Me Dr. Boita song. Me no not decide whether I'm beside Captain Raybon and me no got authority lo display. And board staff authority, provincial government staff, all yet giving me answer. Me blow behind him taso.
Northern Governor Gary Juffa was disappointed in not being informed about the event and the Prime Minister's visit.
It's unfortunate that these things are happening, but these things would not happen if there was something called respect in place.
Member for Ijivitari David Arore said it was the hospital board that organized the event.
In every situation and circumstances, there's always political point scoring, in whatever situation it is. It just happened that the organizers of the hospital decided that this will be the date and time of the official opening, in which I don't have a part, nor does the Prime Minister or the Health Minister or the government of the day. It is the Popondetta General Hospital Board that set this day for the official opening.
The Somare government in 2011 had provided the 10 million kina seed capital for the project. The current government has funded 20 million kina over 5 years. The Oro provincial government contributed 60,000 kina towards hosting the opening ceremony. The hospital also thanked the health secretary for commissioning the operating theatre for use. Deli Waigeno, National, EMTV News.
Papua New Guinea and the United States are working together to save the lives of people suffering from HIV/AIDS and tuberculosis. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill voiced PNG's gratitude to the US government for its ongoing healthcare engagement and in logistical support for 2018 APEC. Mr. O'Neill made the remarks during a courtesy call from the US Ambassador to PNG, Catherine Herbert-Gray, in Port Moresby. Regarding health, he said one of the challenges with reducing TB, particularly in the Gulf and Western provinces, is expanding education and awareness so that people complete their medication cycles. The Prime Minister also thanked the US for assisting PNG in preparations for APEC to ensure a safe and secure environment for leaders, ministers and delegates. And now a look at the finance news. The kina opened unchanged at 0.3145 US dollars in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your kina was buying 0.307 US dollars, 0.413 Australian dollars, 0.2784 euro and 34.47 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold, coffee, cocoa closed higher, while copper closed the day lower. Palm oil closed lower, while crude oil and copper closed the day higher. And on the stock markets, the Dow Jones closed at 23 points lower, the ASX closed 1 point higher, and the All Ordinaries closed 2 points lower. Here with National EMTV News, stories making headlines overseas when we return, including the swearing in of France's new president. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the news. Turning overseas now, France has sworn in its youngest ever president at an elaborate ceremony. Emmanuel Macron now faces the tough task of winning a majority in next month's parliament elections, as his party currently holds no seats.
Not since France had an emperor 200 years ago has it had a leader this young. 39 years old. Inaugurated president today of one of the world's most powerful nations, Emmanuel Macron has seized his opportunity, propelled by a young man's self-confidence and some political good fortune. The disillusion that's fueled populism elsewhere has led France to back a newcomer, but one squarely in the centre ground. Emmanuel Macron routed the traditional parties. The outgoing President François Hollande leaves office as France's most unpopular leader of modern times. But the task in front of Mr. Macron is huge, if this business-friendly liberal is to honour his pledge to transform France.
All labour laws will be liberalised, companies will be supported, initiative encouraged. Innovation and creativity will be at the heart of my program. The French feel left behind by globalization will be better protected.
To achieve all that, Mr. Macron needs a majority in Parliament, but his brand new party has no MPs and elections are in just 4 weeks' time. What Mr. Macron hopes is that by reforming and reinvigorating France, he can make it a force once again at the heart of the EU. So for France and for Europe, much now rests on some very young shoulders.
The UN Security Council will hold an urgent meeting following North Korea's launch of another missile, the 7th this year. The United States and Japan are scrambling to analyze the missile, which they believe could be a new type of long-range ballistic.
That launch raising troubling questions about the increasing sophistication of North Korea's missile program.
It's the first time we've seen any military missile go this far, but we can be sure that the North Koreans are trying to make this missile nuclear capable.
The medium-range ballistic missile launched early Sunday, reaching an unusually high altitude, covering 430 miles over 30 minutes, before coming down into the sea between North Korea and Japan, a few hundred miles from Russia.
Because these missiles are getting more and more capable, shooting up towards Russia allowed them to test the maximum range of this particular missile.
In a statement, the White House called North Korea a flagrant menace and said the president cannot imagine that Russia is pleased. But Russia's defense ministry saying the test posed no danger due to that country's early warning system. This was the 7th missile test since President Trump took office. The previous 3 tests of this type of missile failed, leading some to suggest that the U.S. had hacked the tests.
There's a very strong belief that the Americans, through cyber methods, have been successful on several occasions in interrupting these sort of tests and making them fail.
But on the 4th try, it worked for the North Koreans, the first successful launch of its kind, the KN-17. In response, the Trump administration is calling for tougher sanctions and pressed to explain its overall strategy.
You'll soon find out, won't you? You're going to soon find out.
What we're going to do is continue to tighten the screws. He feels it. He absolutely feels it.
To the U.S., where lawmakers are calling the president to hand over tapes of conversations he had with former FBI Director James Comey, if the recordings exist. Donald Trump tweeted after sacking Mr. Comey that he had recordings of the conversation and he'd release them if the FBI chief spoke to the media.
Even as new candidates arrive at the Justice Department to interview for the FBI director's job, President Trump is still being asked to explain this tweet suggesting he may have taped his conversations with Director Comey before he fired him. The president declines to answer. On the Sunday shows, members of both parties say he'll have to. Republicans?
This tweet has to be answered. I would advise the president not to tweet or comment about the investigation as we go forward.
If, in fact, there are such recordings, I think those recordings will be subpoenaed, and I think they'll probably have to turn them over.
And Democrats.
But first of all, we got to make sure that these tapes, if they exist, don't mysteriously disappear.
To destroy them would be a violation of law.
Today, George Stephanopoulos put it to Ken Starr, the independent counsel whose investigation of the Monica Lewinsky scandal led to the impeachment of Bill Clinton.
If you were looking into this case, would you be demanding tapes from the White House if indeed they do exist?
Oh, absolutely. The investigation has got to be thorough, and that means you go where you think the truth is.
For his part, Comey is going on with his life. Last night, attending a musical here in D.C. Democrats say they want to hear his side of the story, testifying in public on Capitol Hill.
Jim Comey deserves his chance to lay out to the American public his side of the facts.
It's virtually impossible these days not to leave a digital footprint in your tracks. But what if the small devices we increasingly rely on can land you in jail? Anything from data collected on mobile phones, footbeats, and even pacemakers are opening up new avenues for legal investigation.
Whether we know it or not, we leave a trail of information as we move through the world.
If the data is there, there's always going to be a demand for it.
We're being filmed, our phones leave footprints, information frequently used in a court of law.
You can't really rule out any data as completely off limits.
But more and more devices collect very personal data. We monitor our heart rates, even our sleep patterns. But what about information collected inside you, in a pacemaker?
Are you Ross Compton?
Yes, Your Honour. This American claimed to have escaped as his house went up in flames.
Yes, fire. Is everybody out of the house? Oh, yeah.
Instead, he was charged with arson. The heart rate data obtained from his pacemaker didn't back up his story. But have authorities gone too far? We choose to use our phones, but a pacemaker?
That's something in your private domain, so it's not only collecting information about you, but it's doing so kind of within your sphere of privacy.
Aucklander James McColl has a pacemaker.
It's literally life or death for me.
He's unsure whether others should be allowed to access data from it.
For a lot of people, it would open a can of worms, a lot of ethical questions. A lot of people like to keep their privacy.
If police or any other law enforcement agency wants to get access from one of these new data sources, they've got to go and get permission from a judge.
Police say smart devices are continuing to evolve, and they take legal advice when technology opens up new avenues for investigation. The Privacy Commissioner says check your security settings to guard against unlawful data access, but ultimately we need to ask ourselves, is all this technology in our life worth it?
While many mums all over the world celebrated Mother's Day yesterday, for those in Venezuela, it was another day to fight for lives of their children, many of whom perished in a violent 6-week protest against the government of Socialist President Nicolas Maduro.
Dressed in black, the woman marched in support of the opposition to military barracks across the country, asking National Guardsmen to stop defending the unpopular government.
Porque han muerto muchos muchachos jóvenes, futuro que teníamos acá, pura gente buena.
the women held a minute of silence as they mourned the dozens of young people who have died in the 6 weeks of unrest between opposition protesters and security officials. Since April, hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets, angry at the government of President Nicolas Maduro. Since winning a democratic election in 2013, falling oil prices and mismanagement have triggered a major crisis, with skyrocketing crimes and inflation, shortage of the most basic medicines, and severe food scarcity. At least 39 people have died, and many hurt in the relentless unrest. Thousands of others arrested. Under orders from the government, soldiers and police have blocked the streets and fired tear gas and water cannon to disperse the activists. Headed by former Deputy Maria Machado, hundreds of mothers marched to the National Guard's headquarters, where rows of soldiers guarded the installation to make their plea.
Hoy las madres de Venezuela hemos venido a hablarle a los soldados, a la Guardia Nacional. En todos los cuarteles de Venezuela, en las puertas están las madres leyendo este mensaje. Al hijo soldado, para decirle al hijo soldado que no acate la orden de la dictadura, del dictador que le ha robado la comida y que ha traído sangre a su país. Que escuche a su madre.
Melissa Goviro, National EMTV News.
Back home, and the Correctional Service is expected to conduct its own investigations into the circumstances that led to the killing of 17 prisoners who escaped on Friday. While no official statement has been forthcoming from the CS Command, the Police Metropolitan Command has called on relatives of the prisoners to hand them over to police. More than 30 prisoners are still at large, and an upsurge of crime is expected by police.
4 days since the shooting of 17 prisoners and still no word from the Correctional Service Command. It's understood an investigation team will be sent to Ley to begin a probe into the escape and the shootings. From the police perspective, there is also little being said about how the prisoners were shot near the prison compound. Access into the compound has been restricted. For now, Ley's Metropolitan Commander Anthony Wagambi says the escape complicates daily policing duties.
The majority of these escapees are remandees. So remandees do not wear the uniform and that convicted prisoners do wear. So it becomes very difficult once they get into the community. They're able to mix up with everybody else. And
generally, there's been little show of public sympathy since the shootings on Friday. Police have issued warnings to relatives of the escapees to hand them over to police.
It's very, very difficult for us because, we have an everyday job to maintain peace and order in the community. And we have already had other major breakouts from Buimo. And this is just adding on top of the number of outstanding escapees we have. We have apprehended many, but there are still a lot more out there. And this only adds up. And
unofficial sources within the CS Command, meanwhile, said any investigations will uncover previously highlighted issues already known to the public. The shortage of staff and funding, overcrowding, and the long waiting period for prisoners on remand. Overseas, Human Rights Watch Australia has issued a statement calling on PNG's law enforcement agencies to, quote, impartially investigate the prison break. They've also called on the PNG government to identify and charge officers who used excessive force. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Ley.
Here with National EMTV News. Up next, some sporting updates in Trukai Sports. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. The Oceania Football Association have announced that the match between Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands will not be played in Ley as was initially thought. The match will be held at the PNG Football Stadium on the 13th of June at 3 p.m. Earlier in the year, it had been announced that the Sir Ignatius Kilage Stadium would play host.
The announcement for PNG's second city as host had come as a long overdue reward for the country's biggest football fraternity in the Moraba province. Earlier in the year, residents in the city of Leh had been excited at the prospect of their first men's international football in decades. However, the change in venue may not go down too well with supporters in the provinces of both Moraba and Madang, who had been hoping to make the trip to Leh. Nonetheless, the preparations for the PNG squad are going ahead as scheduled. Still without international stars such as Brown and Dabinyaba, word from the camp is that the local-based players are slowly shaping up into a formidable unit, with PNG men's coach Fleming Ritzlev satisfied that the NSL has started, given his ward's valuable match fitness against the Solomon Islands. The first match is scheduled for June the 9th in Honiara. PNG's recent history against the Solomon Islands is a good one. 2 wins and a loss have given the red, black and gold bragging rights over their Melanesian neighbours. However, the latest news out of the Solomons has seen them announce an experienced and very formidable outfit. Mikalea Lafa, Moffat Khalifa and the ageless Henry Farado have all been named, with a call-up also given to 2 former PNG-based players in Joaquim Waroi and Tutizama Tanito. For Papua New Guinea, it is expected that most of their international players will be available for national duties and will return for the full camp within 2 weeks. Jeremy Mogi, National TV Sports.
To hockey, and round 5 of the Port Moresby hockey competition saw the Gold Eagles take on United and Wanderers face Blades in the early match, while MVP would meet the Seagulls in this afternoon's senior women's division. With only weeks to go till the finals, clubs are already hitting peak form. In the men's division, Bismarck, Sunam, Blades and Seagulls all had matched, with Wanderers having a 3-0 win over Bismarck Green. Don't go anywhere, we'll have more of Trukai Sports after these messages.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. Tonga has cancelled their obligations in hosting the 2019 Pacific Games. The decision was made after they received a World Bank report highlighting the economic difficulties they would face if they continue to host the Games.
Ladies and gentlemen, sir.
In 2015, PNG hosted one of the best Pacific Games yet, with the newly renovated facilities around the nation's capital before it was handed over to Tonga at the closing ceremony. The PNG government assured Tonga of their assistance to help prepare for the 2019 Pacific Games. In October last year, CEO of the Games Organizing Committee, Lord Seville, said they were told Papua New Guinea would be forthcoming in assistance but haven't seen anything as yet to confirm. Earlier this year, the PNG government reassured Tonga to helping in their preparations of hosting the 2019 Pacific Games. But Sports Minister Justin Chachenko said with the current economic status PNG is in, priority for spending would still be within the country. The Tongan government took the advice from the World Bank report and pulled out to save their country from making a costly mistake. Tonga will continue to renovate and maintain their facilities to help athletes prepare for the Games. Their concern was about how to generate income from the facilities after the 2019 Games. It is required Tonga must have an annual budget of 12% of the total cost of the expenses used to fund the construction and maintenance of the facilities. But that would be impossible as they cannot afford the large amount of money and do not have the number of people and sports events to use the facilities to generate income after 2019. The Tongan government sent a letter to the Pacific Games Council President Vidya Lakhan, saying Tonga was going to withdraw from hosting the Pacific Games in 2019. Elijah Levet, National EMTV Sports.
With a wealth of experience in mixed martial arts, Jamie Pang has dedicated his free time to teaching young, enthusiastic youth of Port Moresby self-defense classes. Teaching up to 70 students, both young and old, Jamie says it is his love and passion for the sport that has made him want to teach others and grow the popularity of mixed martial arts in Papua New Guinea.
From what I see, while it is a betting shop and workplace by day, at night it is a completely different story. As of 6 p.m, the Port Moresby betting shop is filled with young and enthusiastic martial arts fighters eager to learn self-defense techniques taught by Jamie Pang, who is no stranger to the MMA, who has fought in the world stage alongside his brother Adrian Pang, says it is his love and passion for mixed martial arts that have made him want to give back to the community.
Us as the Pang family, we do not support gender-based violence or street violence or thuggery of any kind. We do not support child-based violence. We do not believe in it. It's a rule in our company that it will not be tolerated.
The defense classes cater to at least 70 students, both young and old, and classes start on Monday and finish on Friday each week. Jamie says each day brings a different challenge to the team, but he doesn't give up on bringing new ideas into the circle to motivate the people involved.
Their approach is it's great. They're enthusiastic. It's hard to put a word to it because they haven't experienced it before. Like Monday we teach Muay Thai and Jeet Kune Do concepts.
The classes are not only organized to learn self-defense techniques, but also part of living healthier lifestyle. While you see these young fighters all eager to learn new techniques, all equipments used, including the betting shop, are all free of charge. This is because Jamie says it is time to teach the young who will one day represent PNG at the world stage, and the time starts now.
Well, a lot of us are training to compete. There's some guys from the POM BJJ Association who will be competing in the near future, given we can raise the finance to send them down south to compete in some high-level tournaments. Yep. I also have young Fidelis Pillai. He's a up-and-coming kickboxer and a Muay Thai fighter, and I believe he will be a future PNG champion.
Godwin Eki, National EMTV Sports.
And that's it for Trukai Sports. Up next, your weather details for the next 24 hours. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
Here's a look at the weather forecast over the next 24 hours in the southern region. Fine weather in Daru, Port Moresby, Kerma, Alotau and Popondetta. You can expect a shower or two. To the Momasa region, a shower or two expected all across the region for Lae, Wau, Medang, Wewak and Vanimo. To the New Guinea Islands region, fine becoming cloudy in Buka, Lorengau, Kavieng, Kokopo, Rabaul and Kimbe, a shower or two over the next 24 hours. And in the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kondiawa, Mendi and Wabeg, all these major centers can expect brief showers with morning fog. To the forecast for small ships for tonight and tomorrow, but first there is a strong wind warning current for all coastal waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait and Daru to Kiwai Island, to Kerma, Yule Island to Hood Point, including Milne Bay Islands, and also for Finchafen through Vitia Strait to Siasi Islands to Long Island. Waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait and Daru to Kiwai Islands, to Kerma, to Yule Island, to Hood Point and Samarai Island, seas 2 to 3 meters. Waters of eastern and western Milne Bay Islands and with waters of Finchafen through Vitia Strait, Dampier Strait, including Siasi to Long Island and Medang and Bogia, seas 1.5 to 2.5 meters. Waters of Samarai Island to Cape Vogel, to Finchafen with waters of Long Island to Medang, Bogia, Wewak, Aitape, Vanimo, northern PNG Indonesian border, and with waters of Manus and its western group of islands, and waters of New Ireland to East and West New Britain and Bougainville, seas 0.5 to 1.3 meters. And a look at the ocean forecast for PNG areas. Coral Sea, seas rough with southeasterly winds at 25 to 34 knots. Solomon Sea, seas moderate with southeasterly winds at 15 to 25 knots. Bismarck Sea, seas slight with southeasterly winds at 10 to 15 knots. And the Pacific Ocean, seas slight to moderate with southeasterly winds at 10 to 20 knots. And that ends National EMTV News for today, Monday the 15th of May 2017. From the EMTV News team, have a pleasant night. Good night.